A mountain rises against the sky. Most turn back before they reach its heights. But Capricorn never stops climbing. To the world, it is the goat, stubborn, disciplined, ambitious. But beneath the symbol lies a truth no horoscope will ever tell you. Capricorn is not about luck or personality. It is the keeper of time, the guardian of karma, the gate where the soul is tested. Ruled by Saturn, the devourer of ages, Capricorn speaks not of comfort, but of destiny. It is the sign of trials, of burden, of initiation. The climb is never easy, but at the summit, eternity waits. This is the full story of Capricorn, the secret hidden in stone, in myth, and in the stars. Capricorn has been reduced in modern astrology columns to little more than ambition, discipline, and the drive for worldly success. But the ancients knew it as something far more profound. It was not merely a sign of personality. It was an archetype, a guardian, a force that sat at the very boundary between the mortal and the eternal. To understand Capricorn is to step into the rhythm of time itself, to confront karma, and to feel the weight of cycles that stretch beyond a single lifetime. The goat climbing the mountain is the surface symbol, but beneath it lies a much deeper layer, the sea goat, a creature of both land and water, of body and spirit. This mythic being originates not in Greece, but in Babylon and Sumer, where Enki, the god of wisdom and the abyss, was depicted as half goat, half fish. Capricorn was therefore always a liminal figure, born of the depths, yet destined for the heights. It holds within it the memory of where we have come from and the vision of where we must go. The horoscope columns speak of careers and success. The archetype whispers of destiny. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is not gentle. Known to the Greeks as Kronos, the devourer of his children, Saturn symbolizes limitation, time, and endings. In Rome, Saturn was both feared and celebrated. His festival, Saturnalia, was a temporary reversal of order, a recognition that time itself rules all things. To be touched by Saturn is to feel the weight of inevitability, yet in that weight lies wisdom. Saturn teaches through trial, and Capricorn becomes the sign that carries this burden most directly. Where others play with freedom, Capricorn confronts necessity. This is why Capricorn has always been tied to karma. Karma is not punishment, but law, the echo of action rippling through time. Saturn, as ruler, is the keeper of that law. In Capricorn's energy, we feel the reminder that nothing is wasted, that every choice matters, that the climb is not optional but required. This is why Capricorn often feels heavy, why those born under its sign are said to age in reverse, carrying burdens early in life, and later revealing wisdom hard won. It is because they are living embodiments of the archetype of time. And time is not only linear. The ancients knew of cycles, of great years, of solstices, of precession. The Egyptians, the Maya, the Vedic sages, all spoke of cosmic rhythms. Capricorn stands at the winter solstice, the darkest night, the place where the sun itself seems to die and then begins its slow rebirth. In this moment, Capricorn embodies the cycle of death and renewal, the reminder that even in endings, beginnings are born. To look at Capricorn as merely ambitious is to miss its essence. It is not ambition for status, but the soul's ambition to fulfill its karmic design. It is not discipline for discipline's sake, but the training of eternity. Capricorn is the hidden archetype, the guardian of time, karma, and cycles. the sign that reminds us that destiny is not chance, but structure, carved in stone and written in the stars. The symbol of Capricorn is strange, even unsettling when looked at closely. A goat with the body of a fish, hooves at the front, a coiling tail at the back. Not the familiar image of the mountain climber we see today, but something far older, born from the dreams and myths of Mesopotamia. This is the sea goat, and its story carries us deep into the forgotten origins of astrology itself. Long before Greek horoscopes and modern star signs, the Sumerians and Babylonians carved this hybrid into their zodiacs, giving it a place of honor among the stars. It was called Suher-Mash-Ha, the goatfish, and it was linked to Enki, the god of wisdom, fresh waters, and creation. Enki was no ordinary deity. In Sumerian myth, he emerged from the Absu, the subterranean ocean of primordial waters. He was the keeper of the Mi, the divine laws that govern civilization. He taught humanity writing, crafts, building, and the secrets of life itself. And he was depicted not as a man, but as a creature part goat, part fish. The goat half symbolized vitality, endurance, the ability to climb mountains and survive harsh terrain. The fish half represented mystery, intuition, and the depths of the subconscious. Together, they created a being that could traverse both realms, the material heights and the watery abyss. This duality is the true origin of Capricorn's symbol, and it reveals a hidden wisdom often lost in translation. The Babylonians inherited this figure and wove it into their zodiac, where it became associated with the constellation we now call Capricornus. On their star maps, the sea goat was not a casual sketch. It was a divine sign, marking the boundary between ages, associated with the winter solstice, the turning point of the sun's journey. To them, the goatfish was not simply an animal, but a cosmic archetype, a reminder that all life moves between opposites, ascent and descent, earth and sea, body and spirit. Later, the Greeks would reinterpret the sea goat through their own mythology. They told the story of Pan, the wild god of nature, who, when attacked by the monster Typhon, leapt into the Nile to escape. The half of his body submerged became a fish, while the half that remained above stayed goat. Zeus, amused by this transformation, placed Pan among the stars as Capricornus. But even this tale, playful as it is, carries the echo of something older, the remembrance of a hybrid being whose wisdom stretched back to Sumer. The sea goat, then, is not a random symbol, but a profound riddle. It speaks of duality, of survival in both realms, of the ability to navigate material struggle while rooted in spiritual depths. To be Capricorn is not only to climb mountains, but to remember the waters from which you rose. It is to embody the paradox of the human condition, mortal and eternal, flesh and spirit, bound to the earth yet forever longing for the sea of origin. The Babylonians carved it into the heavens because they knew the sea goat was the image of the soul itself. Saturn is not a gentle ruler. To the ancients, it was a planet of awe and dread, the furthest visible wanderer in the night sky, slow, deliberate, and relentless in its course. They called it Kronos, the god of time, the devourer of his children. They saw in its motion the weight of inevitability, endings, restriction, and the law of cause and effect. To link Saturn to Capricorn was not a mistake of fortune-telling. It was an act of precision. For Capricorn is not a sign of comfort, but of confrontation with the structures that shape our lives. It is the reminder that every mountain must be climbed, every burden carried, every law of the cosmos acknowledged. Saturn's symbolism runs deep in myth and history. In Hesiod's Theogony, Kronos overthrows his father Uranus, only to be overthrown by his own son Zeus. The cycle of power and limitation repeats itself endlessly, echoing Saturn's role as both creator and destroyer. To the Romans, Saturn was tied to agriculture, to the cycles of planting and harvest, to the truth that what is sown will be reaped. His festival, Saturnalia, briefly inverted social order, as if to acknowledge that beneath our structures lies the chaos of time. Saturn rules not by force, but by inevitability. His lessons cannot be avoided. Astrologically, Saturn is the planet of karma. It governs boundaries, discipline, responsibility, and consequence. Where Jupiter expands, Saturn contracts. Where Venus softens, Saturn hardens. Its placement in the chart shows where we are tested, where we must endure, where shortcuts will never work. For Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, this becomes the very essence of identity. It is why Capricorns are said to carry burdens early in life, why their path seems steep, why they are often misunderstood as severe. They are walking embodiments of Saturn's law. Nothing is given without effort, and time cannot be cheated. Yet Saturn's weight is not cruelty. It is initiation. Just as the alchemist requires pressure to turn lead into gold, so too does the soul require Saturn's trials to reach maturity. Without boundaries, there is no form. Without time, there is no growth. Saturn teaches patience, resilience, and mastery, virtues that cannot be learned in comfort. This is why ancient initiates revered Saturn not as an enemy, but as the true teacher. To stand in Saturn's shadow is to face mortality, but also to glimpse eternity. For the one who accepts Saturn's discipline discovers freedom on the other side. In this way, Capricorn inherits Saturn's mantle. It is not about ambition for its own sake. It is about learning to endure, to build structures that last, to carry responsibility not only for oneself, but for the world. The mountain goat climbs because the mountain exists. Capricorn climbs because Saturn demands it. Destiny is not random. Limitation is not punishment. They are Saturn's reminders that the soul's journey is measured in cycles larger than we can imagine. To walk under Saturn's rule is heavy, yes, but it is also the path to mastery, carved in stone and written in time. Capricorn is most often pictured as a goat climbing steadily toward the summit, a creature of ambition, discipline, and endurance. Yet its older image, the sea goat, carries a forgotten truth. Capricorn is not only about reaching the heights of the mountain, it is also about the depths from which that climb begins. To truly understand this archetype, we must see it as both climber and swimmer, a being that bridges abyss and peak. For in Capricorn, the soul is tested in the dark waters before it can ascend to the shining summit. The goat half represents survival and mastery of the physical world. Mountain goats live where few others can, clinging to impossible cliffs, finding sustenance in barren terrain. They are emblems of perseverance, of moving upward no matter how steep the slope. This part of Capricorn speaks to the capacity for endurance, to keep climbing against all odds. But the fishtail tells another story. It pulls Capricorn downward into the waters of the subconscious, into the primordial depths that birthed creation itself. In Mesopotamian myth, this tale belonged to Enki, lord of wisdom and the abyss, who emerged from the Abzu carrying the laws of civilization. The sea goat is thus a paradox, one half moving toward the heavens, the other rooted in the waters of mystery. Psychologically, this duality reflects the Capricorn experience. Outwardly, it appears practical, pragmatic, oriented toward visible achievement. Inwardly, however, it carries profound sensitivity, depth, and often a hidden melancholy. Many astrologers note that Capricorn's surface of discipline and control conceals a deep emotional reservoir. Like the goat that hides its fishtail, Capricorn often buries its vulnerability beneath layers of strength. Yet this vulnerability is precisely what gives the climb meaning. To ascend without having first known the abyss would be hollow. Capricorn's power lies in the fact that it has lived in both realms. This duality also speaks to the cycle of death and rebirth. The ocean is the womb of life, but also the grave of civilizations. Atlantis itself is said to sleep beneath its waters. The mountain, by contrast, symbolizes transcendence, initiation, and the climb toward immortality. Capricorn contains both stories. It remembers the flood that destroyed, but also the peaks that survived. It knows the pull of gravity and the call of eternity. The archetype becomes a mirror for the human journey, born in mystery, striving toward clarity, shaped by both loss and endurance. In Egyptian symbolism, Osiris echoes this pattern. Dismembered and cast into the Nile, he is reborn as lord of the underworld, only to rise again in the cycle of vegetation and resurrection. Capricorn's dual nature is not unique to astrology. It is an archetype of all cultures. The truth that the path to the summit always begins in the abyss. The sea goat teaches us that success is not simply about rising. It is about remembering the depths from which we came. Every mountain peak stands because there is an ocean floor beneath it. Capricorn's climb is sacred not because it reaches the top, but because it never forgets the waters that shaped its beginning. Time is the essence of Capricorn, not just the ticking of the clock or the passing of years, but time as a living force, a presence that shapes destinies and devours empires. In mythology, this force was given a name, Kronos. The Greeks described him as the eldest of the Titans, the one who overthrew his father Uranus and ruled the Golden Age. Yet Kronos was not a benevolent king. Fearing that his own children would rise against him, he devoured each one as they were born. Only Zeus escaped, hidden away, and in the end, he too overthrew Kronos. This cycle of rebellion and downfall, of fathers devouring sons, is more than myth. It is the story of time itself. Time creates, time destroys, and in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, the Roman form of Kronos, this truth becomes a living archetype. Astrologically, Saturn is called the Great Malefic, not because it seeks to harm, but because it confronts us with limits. It is the weight of gravity, the passage of years, the bones that outlast flesh. It is what reminds us that every beginning is shadowed by an end. In Capricorn, this reality becomes sharpest. The sign falls during the winter solstice, the darkest night, when the sun itself appears weakest. Yet from this very point, light begins to return. Here lies the paradox of Kronos. Time imprisons, but it also opens the way to renewal. Capricorn embodies both sides, the burden of cycles and the promise of liberation through them. To live under Saturn's influence is to feel the pressure of necessity. Responsibilities, duties, debts, these are the chains of Kronos, but hidden in those chains is a key. For by enduring trials, by embracing discipline, by accepting limitation, one is transformed. Alchemists called Saturn the stage of nigredo, the blackening, where matter is reduced to its base before it can be refined into gold. In the same way, Capricorn must descend into time's prison to discover time's secret. Endurance becomes strength. Responsibility becomes wisdom. The devourer of ages becomes the teacher of eternity. Ancient initiates understood this. Mystery schools often placed trials of silence, solitude, and hardship before their students. These were Saturnian rites, forcing the initiate to confront the weight of time, the frailty of the body, the inevitability of death. Only through such trials could they awaken to truths beyond time. Capricorn's climb is this same initiation. To bear the weight of Saturn is to prepare for liberation. The mountain is steep, but at its peak lies freedom from the prison of Kronos. Capricorn is therefore not cursed, but chosen. It carries the heaviest lessons, yet also the highest rewards. To understand its archetype is to see that time is not merely a devourer. It is also a midwife. Each ending births a new beginning. Each limit becomes a gateway. Capricorn stands as the reminder that while Kronos may rule the ages, the soul itself is older still. Time imprisons, yes, but it also opens the path to eternity. The heart of Capricorn lies in the silence of winter. It begins where the nights are longest, where the cold seems absolute, and where the sun itself appears weakest. This is the winter solstice, the cosmic turning point when darkness reaches its peak and light begins its slow return. To the ancients, this moment was not only astronomical, it was sacred. The solstice marked the rebirth of the sun, the eternal cycle of death and renewal written in the heavens. That Capricorn rules this threshold is no coincidence. It is the sign of endurance through darkness, the guardian of the gate where despair gives way to resurrection. For thousands of years, civilizations aligned their temples, stones, and myths to the solstice. At Newgrange in Ireland, a passage tomb more than 5,000 years old, the rising sun of the winter solstice pierces a narrow corridor, flooding the inner chamber with golden light. In Stonehenge, the great stones are aligned to mark the same turning point. In Egypt, the Temple of Karnak was designed so that the solstice sunrise would illuminate its inner sanctum. Even in Rome, Saturnalia was celebrated at this time, honoring Saturn, ruler of Capricorn, with a festival of reversal, chaos, and hidden renewal. Everywhere, the solstice was seen as the pivot of the year when time itself reset. Astrologically, Capricorn carries this symbolism in its essence. To be born under this sign is to embody the paradox of the solstice, to carry both the heaviness of long nights and the promise of returning light. The Capricorn archetype knows struggle, delay, and burden, but it also knows that within endurance lies transformation. The goat climbs in winter when survival seems hardest, because the soul it represents carries the memory that light always returns. It is the sign that stands watch at the moment when the universe itself demonstrates resurrection. The solstice is not only seasonal, it is spiritual. In many esoteric traditions, the descent into darkness and the emergence of light mirrors the initiate's path. Death, trial, and silence precede illumination. The sun's journey becomes a mirror of the soul's. When the ancients celebrated the solstice, they were not only honoring the sky, they were affirming the law of cycles, that every ending conceals a beginning, and every shadow hides a seed of light. Capricorn, as ruler of the solstice, becomes the keeper of this wisdom. It does not promise ease, it promises rebirth, but only after endurance. The winter solstice also hints at something greater, the precession of the equinoxes, the vast cycle of ages measured by the slow wobble of Earth's axis. Just as the solstice marks the return of the sun each year, precession marks the turning of entire ages in cosmic time. Capricorn, standing at the solstice gate, reflects this greater truth, that civilizations too experience their solstices, their darkest nights before dawn. In this way, Capricorn is not only a personal archetype, it is a cosmic reminder that even when light is buried, it always rises again. The goat climbs not because the mountain is easy, but because it knows that beyond the summit, the sun always waits. Capricorn carries the torch of the solstice, a guardian of the eternal rhythm, where light returns from darkness, and the cycle begins anew. The climb of Capricorn is not a climb for comfort. It is not the soft path of ease or the quick ascent of luck. It is a slow, deliberate struggle upward, step by step, with no shortcuts. This image of the goat on the mountain is not only a metaphor for worldly ambition, it is a symbol of the soul itself, which must ascend through the trials of existence, carrying burdens, facing obstacles, and enduring storms, until it stands upon the summit transformed. Capricorn's struggle is cosmic because it reflects the pattern of life itself, descent into matter, endurance through limitation, and the long journey back toward light. The mountain has always been a sacred image in myth and religion. Moses climbed Sinai to meet God. The Greeks spoke of Olympus, home of the gods, a peak unreachable by mortals. The Hindus venerated Mount Meru as the cosmic axis, the link between heaven and earth. To climb the mountain was to approach divinity, to bridge the human and the eternal. Capricorn embodies this archetype. The goat does not stay in the valleys, where the path is easy. It ascends into thin air, where few dare follow. This ascent is the essence of initiation, the movement from the profane into the sacred, from the ordinary into the divine. Yet every climb is marked by trial. The mountain tests endurance. The higher one climbs, the thinner the air, the sharper the rocks, the greater the solitude. For Capricorn souls, life often feels like this mountain path, filled with delays, obstacles, and responsibilities that weigh heavier than those given to others. It is easy to see this as punishment, but esoteric traditions remind us it is preparation. Just as the alchemist requires fire to refine gold, the soul requires trial to awaken its inner strength. Capricorn becomes the archetype of this refinement, the climb that forges wisdom. Psychologically, this climb reflects the process Carl Jung described as individuation, the confrontation with shadow, the integration of the self, the movement toward wholeness. It is not easy. It demands discipline, honesty, and courage, but the reward is mastery of the self. In astrology, Capricorn is associated with mastery of the material world, but beneath that is mastery of the spiritual world. The goat climbs not only for survival, but to prove that the soul can rise above gravity itself. In esoteric astrology, the mountain climb of Capricorn is also the final test before entry into Aquarius and Pisces, signs that open the collective and the mystical. Capricorn is therefore the gate of initiation. Only through its trials can the soul move into higher realms. This is why Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, is called the Great Initiator. The climb may feel like imprisonment, but in truth, it is the shaping of strength required for liberation. The cosmic climb of Capricorn is the story of humanity. Each life is a mountain. Each trial is a step upward. And though the summit may seem impossibly far, each burden carried, each hardship endured, becomes the very stone upon which the soul rises. Capricorn does not promise an easy path. It promises a summit, and when the summit is reached, the view is eternity itself. Capricorn's climb is often praised as noble, steady, and necessary. Yet every archetype carries a shadow. For Capricorn, that shadow is ambition. Not the sacred ambition of the soul to fulfill its destiny, but the worldly ambition that craves control, power, and permanence. The same energy that allows the goat to scale impossible cliffs can also lead it to trample others, obsessed only with the summit. In this shadow form, Capricorn forgets that the climb is symbolic. It begins to believe that success in the outer world is the goal, rather than the refinement of the inner self. History offers countless examples of this shadow. Saturn, Capricorn's ruler, represents authority, structure, and law. When these are used wisely, they preserve civilization. When corrupted, they harden into tyranny. Empires built under Saturn's energy often endure for centuries, yet they eventually collapse when control replaces wisdom. Rome itself, once honoring Saturn through the festival of Saturnalia, became the embodiment of the Capricorn shadow. Rigid hierarchies, obsession with order, and the relentless pursuit of power. The empire rose high, but the higher it climbed, the more devastating its fall. Psychologically, the shadow of Capricorn manifests as over-identification with achievement. It is the person who defines themselves only by work, status, or reputation, who sacrifices relationships and inner peace at the altar of success. Carl Jung described the danger of one-sided development. When a person leans too heavily into one archetype, they become possessed by it. Capricorn's possession is ambition without soul. It leads to burnout, loneliness, and the gnawing sense that no summit is ever high enough. The goat keeps climbing, but the mountain becomes endless, a prison of its own making. In mythology, this shadow is reflected in Kronos, who devoured his children in fear of losing power. Instead of trusting the natural cycle, he clung to control, and in doing so, ensured his downfall. The lesson is clear. When Capricorn energy resists the flow of time, when it tries to hold power forever, it becomes destructive. Saturn teaches that everything has its season. To deny this is to be consumed by fear. Yet even the shadow has purpose. The drive for power exposes its own futility. The hunger for control reveals its emptiness. Many Capricorns discover, often late in life, that the outer climb cannot satisfy the inner need. Only then does transformation occur. The soul, having exhausted worldly ambition, turns inward to seek true mastery. In this sense, the shadow is not failure. It is part of the climb, a necessary confrontation with the illusions of control. Capricorn's ambition is sacred when directed toward responsibility, endurance, and wisdom. It is dangerous when it seeks domination, permanence, or recognition alone. The hidden danger of Capricorn energy is forgetting the purpose of the climb. The mountain is not there to prove superiority. It is there to teach endurance, humility, and perspective. When ambition is purified by wisdom, Capricorn transcends its shadow. The goat becomes not a tyrant of the mountain, but a sage who shows others the way. Capricorn stands in the zodiac not only as a climber of mountains, but as the judge who measures every step. Its ruler, Saturn, has always been linked with law, responsibility, and the reckoning of deeds. In Vedic astrology, Saturn is called Shani, the slow-moving one, who delivers karmic justice with precision. In Western astrology, Saturn is the taskmaster, the one who denies shortcuts, who forces us to face the consequences of our actions. When these two traditions are placed side by side, the message is the same. Capricorn is the keeper of karma, the sign where debts are paid, lessons are learned, and the scales of time are balanced. Karma, often misunderstood as punishment, is better described as cause and effect across lifetimes. Every choice sends ripples into the fabric of existence, and those ripples eventually return. Capricorn's energy makes us feel this more deeply than any other sign. Where Sagittarius dreams of freedom, Capricorn confronts the bill. Where Gemini flits from one curiosity to another, Capricorn asks, what has been built? This is why those influenced strongly by Capricorn often feel life pressing heavily upon them, as if they are carrying not only their own burdens but echoes of the past. The climb they undertake is not merely personal, it is karmic. Myth reflects this truth. In Egypt, the weighing of the heart by Mahat determined the soul's fate, a scene of judgment that echoes Saturn's domain. In Greece, the fates wove destinies that even gods could not escape, while Kronos, as Saturn, ruled the turning of ages. In India, Yama, the god of death, measured the deeds of the departed before deciding their next incarnation. Each culture placed at the heart of existence a figure who resembled Saturn, the strict arbiter, the inescapable judge, the one who ensures that no action is lost to time. Capricorn inherits this mantle in astrology, becoming the archetype through which souls confront their own accountability. The taskmaster aspect of Capricorn is not cruelty, but initiation. To face Saturn's lessons is to grow in strength and wisdom. The delays, restrictions, and responsibilities often associated with this sign are the very conditions that shape maturity. Without resistance, no muscle forms. Without struggle, no wisdom deepens. Capricorn teaches that karmic debts are not curses, but opportunities for refinement. To be held accountable is to be trusted with the chance to evolve. In the personal chart, Capricorn placements often signal where an individual must work hardest, where lessons cannot be skipped. These challenges are not random. They are karmic checkpoints, reminders of unfinished business carried across lifetimes. The soul is called to endure, to take responsibility, to climb the mountain it once avoided. And though the path feels lonely, at the summit lies freedom, the release that comes only when debts are paid and lessons are learned. Capricorn, as keeper of karma, stands at the threshold of cycles. It reminds us that nothing escapes time, that every act has weight, and that every burden carried is also a step toward liberation. The goat climbs not to escape judgment, but to fulfill it. And in that fulfillment, the soul becomes free. Saturn has long been a planet of fear. In traditional astrology, it was called the Greater Malefic, the bringer of hardship, limitation, and loss. People dreaded its return cycles, which arrive every 29.5 years, marking times of testing and reckoning. Even today, in popular astrology, Saturn is spoken of with unease, as the planet that takes away, that delays, that forces confrontation with reality. Yet this reputation is only half the story. For the ancients, Saturn was not only feared, it was revered. It was seen as the true initiator, the gatekeeper of wisdom, the teacher who transforms struggle into mastery. To understand Capricorn, one must recover this forgotten view of Saturn, not as an enemy, but as the master of initiation. The Romans honored Saturn with one of their most important festivals, Saturnalia. During this week-long celebration, normal hierarchies were overturned. Masters served slaves, rules were suspended, and chaos was embraced. On the surface, it was revelry, but beneath it lay a profound truth. Saturn reminded society that all structures are temporary, that time dissolves all power, and that freedom exists only when one sees beyond hierarchy. The temporary reversal was a ritual acknowledgement of Saturn's cosmic law, that no empire, no throne, no master endures forever. In esoteric traditions, Saturn was linked with initiation into higher knowledge. The Hermetic text described the 7 planetary spheres, with Saturn ruling the highest, the final test before the soul could ascend to the realm of the stars. Passing through Saturn meant facing limitation, mortality, and the weight of karma. Only by enduring this trial could the soul move beyond. Thus Saturn became the initiator, the one who stripped away illusions and revealed truth. In Kabbalah, Saturn corresponds to Binah, the sphere of understanding, where structure and discipline give birth to wisdom. To stand in Saturn's sphere was not punishment, but preparation for awakening. The world fears Saturn because it strips away comfort. It reminds us of death, of time, of boundaries we cannot escape. But this is precisely why the ancients revered it. To confront time is to confront reality, and in facing reality, we awaken. Carl Jung noted that without confrontation with shadow, there is no integration of the self. Saturn is that confrontation on a cosmic scale. It demands that we face the truth of who we are, without pretense, without avoidance. The hardships Saturn brings are mirrors, showing us where we must grow. For Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, this role becomes central. Those with strong Capricorn influence often feel tested, delayed, or burdened early in life. Yet as they endure, they gain maturity and wisdom far beyond their years. Saturn teaches them not through ease, but through necessity. And in the end, these individuals often become the teachers, leaders, and guides for others, precisely because they have faced Saturn's lessons and survived. Saturn is not the destroyer it is made out to be. It is the teacher forgotten, the initiator disguised as limitation. To embrace Saturn is to step willingly into trial, knowing that on the other side lies freedom. The ancients knew this. They did not curse Saturn. They honored it. And in that honor, they saw what modern eyes too often miss, that the heaviest burden is also the greatest gift. In the myths of ancient Egypt, the story of Osiris stands as one of the most powerful reflections of the Capricorn archetype. Osiris was a god-king, beloved and wise, who brought civilization to his people. Yet his reign ended in betrayal. His brother Set lured him into a coffin, sealed it shut, and cast it into the Nile. Later, Osiris's body was dismembered, cut into pieces and scattered across the land. This violent image might seem far from the quiet determination of Capricorn, but beneath it lies the same essence: the confrontation with death, dismemberment, and trial, leading ultimately to rebirth and transformation. Osiris's body parts were gathered by Isis, his devoted consort, who reassembled him and breathed life into him long enough to conceive Horus, the Avenger Son. Though Osiris never returned to rule in the physical world, he became lord of the underworld, presiding over judgment and the cycles of rebirth. In this way, he mirrors the Capricorn archetype, shaped by Saturn's hand. Osiris endured fragmentation, but through endurance, he transcended. He became more than a king. He became the eternal judge, the one who measured souls in the halls of Ma'at. Capricorn, too, is bound to cycles of trial and reconstruction. What is lost is never truly gone. It is reassembled, made eternal through discipline and remembrance. The symbolism of dismemberment is deeply tied to Saturn. Just as Kronos devoured his children, time itself devours form. Everything falls apart. Bodies age, kingdoms collapse, structures erode. Yet the myth of Osiris shows that within destruction lies renewal. His dismemberment was not the end. It was the passage into a new kind of power. Similarly, Capricorn represents the soul's encounter with limitation, with the tearing down of illusions, with the weight of time. Out of that breaking comes wisdom. Out of that breaking comes transformation. Egyptian ritual reflected this truth. The Osirian mysteries celebrated in Abydos reenacted his death and resurrection, teaching initiates that to die before you die is the key to immortality. In this, we find Capricorn's hidden lesson. The goat climbs not only to reach a summit in life, but to learn endurance through death, through endings, through dismemberment. The trials of Capricorn souls often feel like pieces of themselves being scattered. Relationships, ambitions, health, or security may be broken apart. Yet the pattern mirrors Osiris. The breaking is the passage to a greater rebirth. Esoteric writers such as R.A. Schwaller de Lubitsch have pointed to the Osiris myth as a symbolic drama of the soul's transformation. It is not only a tale of gods, but a mirror of the human path. Each of us must face dismemberment, the loss of illusions, the breaking of ego, the scattering of what we thought we were. Capricorn's Saturnian energy ensures that these trials come, but also that through endurance, we emerge reassembled, wiser, and more eternal. In Osiris, we see Capricorn's archetype written in mythic form: the fall, the breaking, the descent into darkness, and the slow climb back into light. What dies is form. What survives is essence. And that essence, like Osiris, becomes eternal, carved into the cycles of time itself. The image of the goat clinging to the side of a mountain is more than rustic poetry. It is a spiritual lesson carved into nature itself. Few animals embody discipline as purely as the mountain goat. Where other creatures falter, the goat persists. Where the terrain is steep, the goat adapts. Where the air is thin and the cold unyielding, the goat climbs higher still. This is not instinct alone. It is archetype, a living symbol of Capricorn's truth. For the goat's climb is the climb of the initiate, the slow ascent toward mastery that can only be achieved through patience, endurance, and the acceptance of trial. In ancient mystery schools, initiation was never about sudden enlightenment. It was about a process, rigorous, demanding, and often painful. In Egypt, initiates endured years of training in silence, mathematics, astronomy, and ritual before being admitted into the deeper temples. In Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries took candidates through symbolic death and rebirth, stripping them of illusion before revealing sacred truths. These paths mirror the climb of the goat. Progress is slow. Each step requires focus. Each mistake has consequence. The climb itself becomes the teacher. Capricorn embodies this initiatory rhythm. It teaches that wisdom is not granted freely. It must be earned, step by careful step. The mountain is the perfect metaphor for discipline. It does not yield to shortcuts. The goat cannot leap from the base to the summit in one bound. It must endure every ledge, every obstacle, every storm. In the same way, Capricorn souls are called to confront the trials of life directly. Their path is rarely easy. They may face setbacks in career, in love, in health. Yet through these trials, they are shaped. Each struggle is a lesson. Each burden carried strengthens the soul's endurance. Just as the goat becomes sure-footed through countless climbs, the Capricorn spirit grows wise through repeated encounters with resistance. Psychologically, this archetype reflects what Carl Jung called individuation, the slow integration of the self through confrontation with shadow and responsibility. Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, insists on this work. It does not allow avoidance. It demands that the individual meet reality as it is, not as they wish it to be. This confrontation with reality is discipline, and discipline, once embraced, becomes freedom. For mastery is not control over others. It is control over the self. The goat's climb is not about conquering the mountain, but about conquering fear, distraction, and weakness within. This is why Capricorn energy often ripens with age. Youth may feel heavy, burdened, or delayed, but as years pass, the wisdom of endurance reveals itself. Those who carry Capricorn's lessons often find their true power later in life, when others are fading. The climb, though long, leads to mastery, and mastery is eternal. The goat on the mountain is not simply a creature of survival. It is a mirror of the initiate. Its climb is a sacred journey, each step a discipline, each summit a revelation. Capricorn reminds us that the only way upward is through persistence. And when the summit is reached, what the initiate gains is not power over the mountain, but mastery over themselves. Capricorn's essence is written not in fleeting symbols, but in the most enduring materials of existence. Where other signs may govern passion, communication, or movement, Capricorn rules stone and bone, the structures that endure when all else fades. This is no accident. In astrology, Capricorn is tied to the skeleton, the framework that holds the body upright. Without bone, flesh collapses. Without structure, life cannot endure. In the same way, Capricorn is tied to stone, the foundations of temples, the monuments that survive millennia, the enduring architecture of civilization. The goat does not chase the ephemeral. It builds in what lasts. In ancient Egypt, stone was the medium of eternity. Papyrus decayed, wood rotted, but stone endured. That is why the pyramids, obelisks, and colossal temples were carved from granite and limestone. To the Egyptians, building in stone was an act of alchemy, turning mortal effort into immortal memory. Capricorn carries this same archetype. Its influence is felt wherever humanity seeks permanence, whether in cathedrals that pierce the sky, in laws etched into tablets, or in bones that outlast flesh by centuries. Saturn, Capricorn's ruler, governs not only time but also matter at its densest. To master Saturn is to master endurance. The symbolism of bone is deeply significant. Bones are hidden beneath the surface, unseen in daily life, yet without them, there is no form. In the same way, Capricorn energy often works invisibly. It is the discipline behind the achievement, the foundation beneath the success, the unseen effort that holds everything in place. In medicine, bones are the last part of the body to decay, often surviving thousands of years as fossilized remains. They become time's archive, carrying memory forward. Capricorn embodies this principle, that what is essential survives beyond the passage of years. Stone carries the same message. From Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge, from the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the pyramids of Giza, stone has always been chosen as the medium of sacred work. It is the material that resists time, that speaks across ages. To carve in stone is to declare permanence. Capricorn, aligned with this archetype, is the sign that builds not for today, but for centuries. Its lesson is that true mastery is not measured by fleeting recognition, but by what endures long after the builder is gone. The alchemy of stone and bone is the alchemy of permanence. Where fire consumes and water flows, stone and bone hold. Capricorn teaches that the soul's climb is not about passing pleasures, but about creating structures that last. Wisdom, legacy, foundations for others to stand upon. This is why Capricorn's energy is often linked with institutions, governments, and traditions. When corrupted, these structures become rigid, but when aligned with wisdom, they become cathedrals of spirit, supporting generations to come. The goat climbs not to collect treasures that fade, but to build in what will last. Bones remind us of mortality, stone reminds us of eternity, and Capricorn teaches us the alchemy that unites the two. To live by Capricorn's wisdom is to carve one's life into the enduring structure of time, so that even when flesh falls away, the essence remains, unbroken, eternal, carved in stone. The 10th house in astrology is often described as the house of career, reputation, and public standing. But to reduce it only to profession is to miss its depth. In truth, the 10th house is the summit of the chart, the place where the soul's journey rises into visibility, where private effort meets public expression, where destiny is revealed to the world, and it is ruled by Capricorn, the mountain climber, the sign of endurance and mastery. To understand the 10th house is to understand the secret of Capricorn, that life is not only about personal growth, but about the mark one leaves upon the world. The chart itself is a circle, a wheel of life. At the bottom lies the 4th house, the roots, the home, the hidden foundation. At the top stands the 10th, the peak, the point of highest elevation. Just as the goat climbs from valley to summit, so the soul moves from private beginnings toward public destiny. Capricorn rules this point because it knows the climb. The struggles of responsibility, discipline, and delay prepare it for this very moment, when what has been built in silence becomes visible for all to see. The 10th house is therefore not about shallow fame. It is about alignment with purpose, the manifestation of inner truth in the outer world. In traditional astrology, the 10th house was associated with kings, leaders, and those who bore responsibility for the many. This reflects Capricorn's archetype as keeper of structures and laws. But modern astrologers such as Liz Green remind us that the 10th house also carries weight for every individual, not only rulers. It is the place where we meet authority, both in others and within ourselves. It asks the question, what role do you play in the greater order of life? For some, it manifests as profession. For others, as calling, vocation, or duty. But always, it is about responsibility to something larger than oneself. The 10th house also carries karmic significance. Because it sits at the highest point of the chart, it is where past effort ripens into consequence. Just as Saturn is the lord of karma, the 10th house reveals where the soul must reckon with what it has built or failed to build. This is why it often feels heavy, demanding, or slow to unfold. Many find that their 10th house purpose reveals itself later in life, after years of climbing. The summit is not reached quickly, but when it is reached, the view is lasting. Capricorn teaches that the climb to the 10th house is not about ambition for its own sake. It is about service to the collective. The pharaoh, the king, the leader, all wore crowns not for personal glory, but as symbols of duty. When aligned with wisdom, the 10th house represents legacy, structure, and guidance for future generations. When corrupted, it becomes tyranny and obsession with status. The secret lies in remembering Saturn's law. The summit is not the end, but a vantage point. From there, one must see further, serve deeper, and build foundations that endure. The 10th house is Capricorn's domain because it embodies the soul's highest calling. It asks not only, what will you achieve, but what will endure because you lived? In that question lies the true summit, not of fame, but of destiny. The image of the black cube has appeared across cultures, religions, and esoteric traditions, mysterious, stark, and deeply symbolic. To some, it is sacred geometry in its simplest form. To others, it is the most forbidden of emblems, a reminder of Saturn's heavy hand over time and control. And yet, Within this cube lies a profound key to transformation. For Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, the black cube is not only a symbol of confinement, it is also a vessel of alchemy, where endings become beginnings and matter becomes spirit. The cube, in geometry, is the most stable of forms. 6 equal sides, unyielding symmetry, immovable presence. It represents structure, foundation, permanence. In Kabbalah, it resonates with Bina, the sphere of understanding, associated with Saturn, where the primordial chaos is shaped into form, where boundaries create reality. But stability is double-edged. What creates form also creates prison. The cube can be sanctuary or confinement. In the shadow, it becomes the weight of limitation, the rigidity of systems that bind. This is why Saturn is feared. It governs boundaries that can become cages. Esoteric traditions have long hidden Saturn's cube in plain sight. In Mecca, millions circle the Kaaba, the great black cube, in rituals of devotion and transcendence. In Judaism, the tefillin, small black cubes worn during prayer, bind sacred words to the body, symbolizing covenant and memory. In modern culture, the cube appears in occult iconography, in architecture, even in corporate logos. Its presence is not accidental. The cube represents time crystallized, matter shaped, the unavoidable law of Saturn etched into reality. For Capricorn, the black cube is deeply personal. It reflects the sign's trials, the weight of responsibility, the discipline of limitation, the sense of being boxed in by duty and necessity. Yet inside this box lies the secret of transformation. Alchemists saw Saturn as the Negredo stage, the blackening, where matter must decay before being reborn as gold. The cube, black and solid, holds this same power. Within its darkness, change begins. What seems prison becomes womb. What seems ending becomes renewal. Capricorn souls who endure the heaviness of Saturn often discover, late in life, that the cube was never a cage, but a crucible. The cube also symbolizes time. Each face is a direction, each angle a boundary. Time, like the cube, is measured, divided, and absolute, but Saturn teaches that time itself is the teacher. To live within the cube is to learn patience, endurance, and perspective. To transcend the cube is to glimpse eternity beyond form. This is the hidden alchemy of Capricorn. Learning through confinement, transforming through limitation, finding freedom not by avoiding the box, but by understanding it. The black cube of Saturn is therefore not simply a symbol of control. It is a reminder of transformation. Within its darkness, the soul is tested, refined, and reborn. Capricorn carries this secret, that the heaviest burdens conceal the brightest light. To fear the cube is to miss its gift. To embrace it is to step into the eternal rhythm where matter becomes spirit and endings fold themselves into creation. Capricorn is more than a sign of ambition or endurance. In the esoteric traditions of astrology, it was known as the gate of the gods. The ancients believed that souls entered the world through the portal of Cancer, the gate of incarnation, and departed through Capricorn, the gate of return. Cancer was the descent into matter. Capricorn was the ascent into spirit. This polarity, spoken of in the writings of Macrobius and echoed in Platonic philosophy, gave Capricorn a role unlike any other. It was not simply a place of worldly struggle. It was the zodiacal doorway to immortality. The symbolism makes sense when we look at the sky. Capricorn marks the winter solstice, the point of death and rebirth for the sun. At this threshold, the solar light is weakest, yet it begins its slow ascent back to strength. the sun passes through its own death and emerges into renewal. To the ancients, this was a cosmic mirror of the soul's journey. At the gate of Capricorn, death is not an end but a passage, a return to the source beyond the cycle of incarnation. The goat climbs the mountain not for earthly success, but for this final summit, the ascent out of time. Plato, in his dialogue Timaeus, described the universe as a living soul, with the stars as gates through which individual souls descended and ascended. Later, Neoplatonic philosophers expanded this vision, teaching that Capricorn was the path by which souls, purified through trial, returned to the realm of the divine. This was not myth alone, but initiation. Mystery schools aligned their teachings to this cosmology, training initiates to endure Capricorn's trials of responsibility and discipline so they could pass through the gate unburdened. To fail meant reincarnation, another descent through cancer, another round of karmic lessons. To succeed meant liberation. The imagery of the goat makes this even more profound. The mountain goat climbs toward the peak, solitary, enduring, persistent. But the peak itself is not merely rock. Symbolically, it is the point where earth touches sky, where mortal meets immortal. The goat that reaches the summit passes into eternity. In this way, Capricorn becomes not only the sign of worldly power, but of spiritual transcendence. Its trials are preparation for the soul's release from the cycle of time. Religious traditions echo this truth in different forms. Christianity speaks of the narrow gate that leads to eternal life, a path of discipline and endurance. Hinduism describes moksha, the liberation from the wheel of samsara, attained only after karma is balanced and the self is mastered. Buddhism calls it nirvana, the extinguishing of the cycle of suffering. Each of these paths carries the same essence: a difficult climb, a heavy burden, and a final release into immortality. Capricorn, as the gate of the gods, is the astrological image of this universal teaching. To see Capricorn only as career or reputation is to miss its secret. It is the Zodiac's most difficult path because it leads to the most profound reward. To walk the Capricorn path is to carry the heaviest burdens, to endure the longest winters, to climb the steepest mountains. But for those who persist, the gate opens, and beyond it lies the freedom no horoscope will ever tell you about: the soul's return to eternity. Loneliness is one of Capricorn's greatest trials. It is not the superficial kind of solitude, but the deep and aching sense of standing apart, of carrying burdens few can understand. Many born under this sign describe feeling older than their years, out of step with their peers, or weighed down by responsibilities before they are ready. This loneliness is not random. It is part of the archetype itself. For Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, embodies endurance, responsibility, and discipline, qualities that often require separation before union, solitude before communion. The mountain goat is a solitary figure. It climbs where few others can follow, navigating steep cliffs and thin air. Its path is narrow, dangerous, and often lonely. This image mirrors the Capricorn journey: to climb the symbolic mountain of life, to endure Saturn's lessons of limitation and time, often means walking alone for long stretches. Friends and companions may fall away. Support may be scarce. Yet this solitude is not punishment. It is initiation. The loneliness of Capricorn is the space in which strength is forged. Myth reflects this truth. The Greek figure Kronos, representing Saturn, was cast into isolation after being overthrown by Zeus. Exiled and feared, he bore the weight of time alone. Similarly, Osiris in Egypt dismembered and cast into the Nile, endured a separation that led to transformation. These myths carry the same lesson. Solitude is the crucible in which destiny is shaped. In Capricorn's story, loneliness is not a flaw to escape, but a trial to endure, because only through endurance does power awaken. Psychologically, this trial resonates with Carl Jung's description of individuation. To become whole, one must confront the shadow, the unacknowledged aspects of self. This work is done in silence, away from the noise of the crowd. For Capricorn, loneliness is the terrain of individuation. The absence of external validation forces the soul inward, where it discovers inner authority. The taskmaster Saturn demands that Capricorn souls stand on their own, not leaning too heavily on others until their foundations are unshakable. And yet, this trial of loneliness does not last forever. In astrology, Capricorn is followed by Aquarius, a sign of community, collective vision, and shared ideals. The pattern is symbolic. Capricorn endures solitude so that when it finally finds its place among others, it arrives not as a follower, but as a guide. The loneliness prepares it for leadership, ensuring that its strength does not crumble when others depend upon it. For many Capricorn souls, the early years feel heavy, isolated, even barren. But as time passes, Saturn's reward reveals itself. Later in life, the loneliness softens into authority, wisdom, and respect. What was once isolation becomes magnetism. What was once burden becomes influence. The goat, once alone on the mountain, becomes the sage others seek for guidance. Capricorn's loneliness is not a curse. It is a sacred trial. The initiate must walk alone before they can lead. The soul must endure silence before it can speak with truth. And when Capricorn emerges from this solitude, it carries a power no one can take away. The power born from having stood alone and having survived. Saturn is often called the Lord of Time, and time spares no empire. History is littered with monuments that once stood as unshakable symbols of power, now reduced to ruins swallowed by sand, jungle, or sea. Egypt, Rome, Babylon, the Maya, each believed their structures eternal. Yet Saturn's law is clear. What is built must eventually fall. This cycle of collapse is not random destruction, but a cosmic rhythm. Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, carries this truth in its essence. It teaches that endings are woven into beginnings, and that empires rise not to last forever, but to prepare the ground for what comes next. The Romans, who inherited Saturn as one of their most important gods, understood this paradox. Saturn presided over the Golden Age, a time of abundance and peace, yet also symbolized decay and decline. Rome itself reflected this duality. At its height, it stretched across continents, enforcing law and structure with unmatched precision. Pure Capricornian order. But Saturn's shadow waited. Corruption, overextension, and rigidity eroded its foundation. By the 5th century, the empire had crumbled, leaving behind ruins that still whisper Saturn's lesson. Nothing built in time escapes time. Saturn's cycles are not limited to history books. In astrology, its orbit of roughly 29.5 years creates the famed Saturn return, a personal cycle of collapse and rebuilding. Around ages 29, 58, and 87, individuals experience Saturn's testing hand. Old structures fall away, careers shift, relationships end, illusions dissolve. This personal cycle mirrors the greater collapse of civilizations. What no longer serves must be dismantled, so that something stronger, truer, and more enduring can take its place. Saturn destroys not for cruelty, but for renewal. Geology, too, testifies to this law. Catastrophes such as the Younger Dryas event some 12,000 years ago reshaped the planet with floods and fire. Civilizations that may have existed before were swept into myth, their ruins perhaps buried beneath rising seas. Graham Hancock and others have argued that these cataclysms align with ancient flood stories, echoes of Saturn's hand on a global scale. Collapse is not an aberration, but part of the design. From dust, life begins again. From ruins, cultures rise anew. Capricorn souls often feel this rhythm in their lives. They are builders by nature, but Saturn ensures they also become rebuilders. Their plans may crumble, their efforts undone, their paths delayed. Yet each collapse is initiation, forcing them to construct again with greater wisdom. The goat learns not only how to climb, but how to begin again when the mountain shifts beneath its feet. In this way, Capricorn mirrors the fate of empires. Collapse is not the end, but a summons to rebuild with stronger foundations. Saturn's gift lies hidden in its destruction. By tearing down illusions, it clears space for truth. By dissolving false empires, it prepares the ground for wisdom. Every ruin testifies to this law. Every fallen empire, every personal ending, carries the same whisper. Dust is not death. It is the soil of renewal. And those who endure Saturn's cycles discover that collapse itself is the beginning of power that cannot be broken. The mountain is silent. It does not announce its strength or explain its presence. It simply stands, unyielding, enduring storms and centuries without speech. This silence is the essence of Capricorn's wisdom. Unlike Gemini's quick wit or Sagittarius's fiery declarations, Capricorn's truth is not in words but in endurance. It speaks through presence, through stability, through the quiet strength of one who has survived trial after trial and still remains standing. To listen to Capricorn is to listen to the silence of the mountain itself. In many traditions, the wisest figures are those who have endured rather than those who have spoken the most. In Taoism, Laozi describes the sage as rooted like a tree, immovable in storms, expressing wisdom not through argument, but through alignment with the Tao. In Buddhism, the path of meditation cultivates silence as the highest form of knowledge, a wisdom that cannot be expressed fully in words, only lived. Capricorn mirrors this. Its ruler, Saturn, tests through time and limitation, forcing the soul to grow wise not by debate, but by patience. Endurance itself becomes the teaching. Psychologically, this archetype appears in what Carl Jung described as the old wise man, or Senex figure. The Senex is not youthful or dazzling. He is marked by solitude, discipline, and quiet authority. People come to him not because he talks the most, but because his presence carries weight. Capricorn embodies this archetype. Those influenced by its energy often discover that the most powerful lessons they offer come not from their words, but from the lives they have lived. Their silence is full because it is backed by experience. Their advice carries weight because it is tested by time. The mountain is a powerful symbol of initiation for the same reason. Moses received the law on Mount Sinai, not in the noise of the crowd, but in the silence of the peak. The Buddha found enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree after long, silent meditation. In each story, endurance, not eloquence, was the key. The silence of the mountain is the silence of trial, where distractions fade and truth is revealed only to those who endure. Capricorn, as the mountain goat, climbs to these places of silence, teaching that wisdom cannot be rushed or spoken into existence. It must be lived. In everyday life, this silence often shows itself in Capricorn individuals as a kind of gravity. They may not be the loudest in the room, but their words carry weight when they finally speak. They know that time will reveal truth without the need for noise. Their wisdom comes through steady work, through consistency, through survival of trials that others could not withstand. This endurance makes them guides for others, though they rarely seek the title. The silence of the mountain is Capricorn's legacy. It teaches that true wisdom is not in how much one says, but in how deeply one endures. To be silent is not to be empty. It is to be full of memory, trial, and resilience. The mountain speaks without words, and Capricorn carries that same language. A language written not in speech, but in the very fact of still being there, after all else has fallen away. The journey of Capricorn is long, steep, and often heavy with trials. The goat begins its climb burdened by responsibilities, tested by Saturn's discipline, and shaped by endurance rather than ease. For much of the path, the reward seems distant, even unreachable. Capricorn energy is often described as delayed, slow to unfold, with its blessings arriving only after years of effort. But this delay is not punishment, it is design. For the hidden reward of Capricorn does not come at the beginning or even the middle of life. It arrives at the summit, when the climb is nearly complete, and the goat is no longer only a climber, but a sage. Astrologers have long noted that Capricorn matures in reverse. Where other signs sparkle with youthful energy early on, Capricorn appears weighted, cautious, and reserved in youth. But as years pass, the burdens it carried transform into wisdom, authority, and respect. Saturn's cycles make this clear. The first Saturn return, around age 29, strips away illusions, forcing responsibility. The second, around age 58, brings the harvest. Recognition for what has been built, authority earned, wisdom acknowledged. By the third, in the late 80s, Capricorn souls stand as elders, carrying perspective no textbook could ever teach. Their lives are living proof that endurance ripens into wisdom. This transformation from goat to sage is symbolized in esoteric traditions. In alchemy, Saturn corresponds to lead, heavy, dark, resistant. Yet through pressure and transformation, lead becomes gold. The goat, trudging through trial, eventually becomes the golden sage, carrying the alchemy of experience. What was once seen as restriction reveals itself as refinement. What was once limitation becomes liberation. The hidden reward of Capricorn is not wealth or fame, though these may come. It is inner mastery, the authority of someone who has climbed, endured, and emerged whole. Myth reflects this same pattern. Osiris, dismembered and resurrected, became not a king of the living, but lord of eternity. Kronos, once feared as devourer, was remembered in Rome as the bringer of the Golden Age. The stories show that time, once endured, becomes wisdom. Capricorn's ruler, Saturn, takes but also gives. Its lessons are slow, often harsh, but their fruits are lasting. The sage born from Capricorn's climb is one who can guide others, not through theory, but through the silent authority of a life lived in alignment with reality. This is why Capricorn's true power often emerges later in life. Early struggles build resilience. Midlife trials carve perspective. And by the summit, what remains is distilled truth. Others seek the Capricorn sage not because of charm or persuasion, but because of presence. Their authority is not borrowed but earned, not shouted but lived. The goat has become the mountain itself, steady, enduring, unshakable. The hidden reward of Capricorn is wisdom that cannot be taken away. It is the sage's crown, invisible yet undeniable, carried not on the head but in the soul. This is the summit of the climb, not the fleeting recognition of the world, but the eternal presence of one who has faced time, carried its weight, and emerged timeless. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, but so too is Aquarius. This dual rulership is often overlooked in modern astrology, where Aquarius is usually associated only with Uranus. Yet for most of history, Saturn was seen as the planet that governed both Capricorn and Aquarius, embodying two faces of the same force. In Capricorn, Saturn is the builder, the disciplinarian, the architect of time and law. In Aquarius, Saturn is the liberator, the visionary who shatters old forms to create new ones. Together, they reveal the paradox of Saturn's role: discipline that leads to freedom, structure that makes innovation possible, limitation that prepares the way for transcendence. Capricorn and Aquarius stand next to each other in the Zodiac, but their energy is radically different. Capricorn climbs the mountain alone, bearing the weight of tradition and responsibility. Aquarius, by contrast, looks to the horizon, imagining the collective future, seeking freedom from what Capricorn has built. Yet both are Saturn's children. In Capricorn, Saturn teaches endurance, the hard lessons of time, the building of structures that can last. In Aquarius, Saturn teaches detachment, the breaking of bonds, the ability to step outside structures in order to see a new vision. The same teacher, two lessons. Historically, this dual rulership shows itself in cycles of civilization. Empires are born in Capricorn's energy, structured, disciplined, organized, built from stone and law. But no empire lasts forever. Aquarius arrives to dissolve what has become rigid, to liberate thought, to bring revolution. Saturn rules both stages, the building and the breaking, the discipline and the liberation. Without Capricorn, Aquarius would have nothing to free itself from. Without Aquarius, Capricorn structures would harden into prisons. Saturn ensures both sides play their role. This dual rulership is mirrored in the human experience. Capricorn tests us through responsibility, hardship, and perseverance. It demands that we prove our strength, that we carry the weight of our karma with dignity. Once this endurance is gained, Aquarius takes over, teaching us to release attachment, to think beyond the self, to embrace the collective and the visionary. Saturn governs both phases of growth, first binding us with chains, then showing us how to break them. Mythically, this dual nature is reflected in the story of Kronos. As the devourer, he symbolizes Capricorn's weight, the limitations of time, the lessons of mortality. But in later Roman tradition, Saturn was also remembered as the ruler of the Golden Age, a time of freedom, equality, and abundance. Here, Saturn embodies Aquarius's vision, the promise of liberation once the lessons of limitation are complete. In esoteric astrology, this dual rulership suggests that Capricorn and Aquarius form a pair of initiatory gates. Capricorn is the test of endurance, the climb through shadow and responsibility. Aquarius is the gate of release, the expansion into wisdom that serves humanity as a whole. The soul that passes through Capricorn's trials emerges into Aquarius's vision, ready not just to endure time, but to transcend it. The hidden truth is that Saturn does not only confine, it frees, but the freedom it offers is not cheap or sudden. It is the freedom earned only after discipline has been mastered. Capricorn and Aquarius, side by side, are the proof of this eternal law. in the mystery traditions of the ancient world, initiation was never given lightly. It was not about gaining knowledge from books or listening to lectures. It was about walking through trials that tested every part of the human being, body, mind, and spirit. These ordeals often involve silence, solitude, endurance, and confrontation with fear. And in astrology, the sign that symbolizes this stage of initiation is Capricorn. For Capricorn is not the first step on the path. It is the final ascent, the last trial before liberation. It represents the soul's encounter with the heaviest burdens, the steepest climb, the coldest solitude, and the greatest transformation. Esoteric writers from the Theosophical tradition, such as Alice Bailey, described Capricorn as the sign of initiation. She argued that it is in Capricorn that the disciple faces the final tests, climbing the symbolic mountain where the summit represents union with the divine. The trials of earlier signs prepare the soul, but Capricorn is the crucible. It is the place where every distraction must fall away, where the ego must surrender, and where the climb is sustained not by desire, but by endurance. The initiate who passes through Capricorn's lessons is no longer simply a seeker. They are transformed into a sage. The symbolism of the mountain is found everywhere in spiritual literature. In the Bible, Moses climbed Sinai to receive the law. In Buddhism, Milarepa meditated alone in the high mountains of Tibet, emerging with songs of realization. In Hindu tradition, Shiva is said to dwell on Mount Kailash, the cosmic peak representing transcendence. Each of these stories reflects Capricorn's essence: the mountain as initiatory trial, the peak as the point of divine contact. It is not coincidence that Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, governs this symbolism. Saturn strips away comfort, luxury, and illusion. It forces the initiate to stand naked before reality, and only then can transcendence be attained. The trials of Capricorn are not about outward achievements, though they may appear so. They are about inner transformation. The long climb represents discipline, responsibility, and the acceptance of karmic debts. The silence of the mountain represents the confrontation with the self, without distraction or escape. The cold air represents clarity, the stripping away of illusion. These trials are harsh, but they are necessary, for the initiate must prove not only strength but humility, not only endurance but surrender. The mountain accepts no arrogance. Only the soul that endures with patience and wisdom reaches the summit. This is why Capricorn is often described as heavy in youth, yet wise in age. The early trials are Saturn's tests, the obstacles that seem insurmountable. But as the soul endures, it gains strength, perspective, and clarity. By the time the summit is reached, what was once burden becomes wisdom, and what was once limitation becomes liberation. The esoteric initiation of Capricorn is not for the faint of heart, but for those who endure. The reward is profound. They become more than climbers. They become mountains themselves, steady, eternal, and aligned with the rhythm of eternity. Capricorn's strength lies in discipline, endurance, and structure. Yet in its shadow, these same qualities can harden into control, rigidity, and the misuse of authority. Saturn, the planet of law and limitation, rules both order and oppression. When its lessons are misunderstood, Capricorn's gifts can be twisted into hierarchies that crush rather than guide, institutions that imprison rather than protect, an authority that seeks power for itself instead of service to the whole. This is the shadow of control, the temptation to hold too tightly to the structures Capricorn builds. History shows us countless examples. The Roman Empire, often considered a Capricornian civilization of law and order, eventually collapsed under its own weight of control. Its hierarchies became rigid, its authority oppressive, its vision reduced to maintaining power at all costs. What began as structure turned into prison. The same dynamic can be seen in monarchies that demanded divine right, in corporations that exploit in the name of order, and in religious institutions that claim authority not to guide but to dominate. Saturn's law is impartial, but when wielded without wisdom, it becomes tyranny. Psychologically, this shadow manifests as the obsession with control. Capricorns may struggle with trusting others, fearing that without their oversight, everything will collapse. Their natural gift for discipline and responsibility can transform into micromanagement, rigidity, or perfectionism. Carl Jung wrote of the archetype of the senex, the old man, whose wisdom can stabilize but whose shadow can suffocate. In Capricorn, the senex archetype reveals itself as authority that clings too tightly to rules, forgetting that true wisdom is flexible, not brittle. Even myth warns of this danger. Kronos, in fear of losing his throne, devoured his children. His desire to control the future led him to destroy it. In doing so, he ensured the prophecy of his downfall. Control when rooted in fear always backfires. Saturn teaches that time itself cannot be controlled, only respected. To misuse authority is to attempt to outpace time, and time inevitably devours all who resist it. Yet the shadow is not the final word. Capricorn's lesson is not to abandon structure, but to align it with service. Hierarchies can support rather than dominate. Authority can guide rather than oppress. Structures can endure not because they are rigid, but because they adapt. The key lies in remembering Saturn's law. Everything has its season. When power is hoarded, it decays. When it is shared, it becomes legacy. Capricorn souls often feel the pull of control most strongly when they fear collapse. But Saturn demands trust, not in chaos, but in the rhythm of cycles. True mastery is not found in domination, but in building structures that endure because they serve life itself. The shadow of control teaches us this paradox. The tighter we cling, the faster it slips away. But when we release the need to dominate, we discover the deeper gift of Capricorn, the power to create foundations that outlast us, not as prisons, but as pathways for those who come after. At the heart of Capricorn's mystery lies its connection to the winter solstice. The darkest night of the year is also the birthplace of returning light. Ancient cultures across the world recognized this paradox and encoded it in their myths, temples, and rituals. Capricorn governs this sacred turning point, and in doing so, it carries the secret of resurrection, the truth that death is not an end, but a threshold. At Newgrange in Ireland, a passage tomb more than 5,000 years old, the first rays of the solstice sun pierce a narrow channel, illuminating a hidden chamber deep within. The effect lasts only a few minutes each year, but it is precise and intentional, a testament to the importance of this moment. At Karnak in Egypt, the great temple aligns with the solstice sunrise, flooding its sanctuary with light. Stonehenge in England and the temples of the Andes all bear the same mark. Across cultures, across continents, the solstice was not seen as random astronomy, but as a cosmic drama. Light dies, and then it is reborn. Capricorn, beginning at this exact point, holds this archetype within its very nature. For those born under Capricorn, life often reflects this solstitial rhythm. They are tested in darkness, early struggles, heavy responsibilities, long winters of the soul. Yet within these trials lies the seed of renewal. Just as the sun appears to vanish only to return, Capricorn teaches that endurance through shadow is the path to light. This is why Saturn, its ruler, is not only the planet of endings but also of initiation. What appears as limitation is, in truth, preparation for resurrection. Esoteric traditions understood this connection. In the Eleusinian mysteries of Greece, initiates were led into darkness to confront death, only to be brought out into light, symbolizing rebirth. In Egypt, the myth of Osiris told of dismemberment and resurrection, reflecting the same solstitial truth. In Christianity, Christmas, the birth of light in the darkness, was placed at the solstice, aligning the Saviour's birth with the cosmic pattern of renewal. All of these mysteries speak the same language. What dies in Capricorn is reborn in eternity. The return of light is not merely seasonal or symbolic. It is spiritual. It reveals that no matter how deep the shadow, no matter how long the night, the cycle will turn. Capricorn's wisdom is to trust the process, to endure the silence of winter, to climb even when the summit cannot be seen. For at the darkest hour, the light is already stirring. This is the secret Capricorn carries, that resurrection is woven into the structure of time. The goat climbs not only toward worldly success, but toward this eternal truth, that beyond every death, there is a dawn. Beyond every ending, a return of light. Capricorn's mystery is not only personal, it is cosmic. In the language of the ancients, it was not simply a sign of individuals, but of worlds, of civilizations, of the very structure of time itself. Philosophers like Plato spoke of the anima mundi, the world soul, the living intelligence that animates the cosmos. In esoteric astrology, Capricorn mirrors this archetype. It is the keeper of time, the architect of ages, the one who reminds humanity that behind the cycles of history lies an eternal order, one that is not accidental but deliberate. The idea of the world soul is woven across traditions. The Stoics described the universe as a living, rational being, where each individual was like a cell within a larger body. In Hindu philosophy, the cosmic person, Purusha, contains the universe within his form. In Hermeticism, the maxim "as above, so below" reflects this same vision. The human soul mirrors the structure of the world, and the world mirrors the structure of the soul. Capricorn, sitting at the height of the Zodiac, governs this connection. It is not only about individual discipline, but about aligning with the great architecture of existence. This is why Capricorn is tied to cycles of time. Its ruler Saturn marks the slow, steady rhythm of the ages. Every Saturn return signals personal karmic reckoning. But on a grand scale, Saturn's cycles shape history. Empires rise and fall under its watch. Civilizations endure their winters, their solstices, their collapses, only to be rebuilt anew. Capricorn's archetype carries this law into human consciousness, that we are part of larger patterns, and that our task is not to escape them, but to build within them. In myth, this role appears again and again. Kronos devours his children, symbolizing time consuming its creations, yet he also presides over the golden age, when harmony prevailed. Osiris is torn apart, yet from his dismemberment, new life arises. Each story points to Capricorn's truth. Destruction and creation are not separate, but woven into one fabric. The world soul holds both, endings and beginnings, mortality and eternity, prison and liberation. Capricorn, as its earthly archetype, teaches humanity how to live within that rhythm consciously. For individuals, this means Capricorn's lessons are rarely just personal. They are archetypal. Those who embody its energy often feel called to carry responsibility, not only for themselves, but for others. for families, for institutions, for entire communities. Their work becomes legacy. Their lives become structures upon which others stand. This is not ego but service. The world soul acts through Capricorn to ensure that time itself produces wisdom, and that wisdom becomes foundation for the future. Capricorn as world soul is the architect of ages. It builds slowly, with stone and law, with discipline and endurance. And though its presence may feel heavy, its purpose is sacred, to shape chaos into cosmos, to give form to the formless, to remind the soul that its climb is part of a larger climb, one that carries not just individuals, but humanity itself toward the summit of eternity. The symbol of Capricorn is unlike any other in the zodiac. Half goat, half fish, it is a hybrid that resists simple explanation. Modern astrology often reduces it to the image of the mountain goat, climbing endlessly towards success. But the original emblem, traced back to Babylon and Sumer, was the sea goat, a creature with the hooves of a goat and the coiling tail of a fish. This strange form is not random. It carries within it a profound mystery. The union of earth and water, body and spirit, matter and memory. To understand Capricorn fully, we must return to this symbol and what it reveals. The goat half is the climber, the one who perseveres against gravity, scaling cliffs where no other creature can follow. It represents determination, endurance, the will to ascend. This is Capricorn's earthy nature, its connection to discipline, practicality, and the material world. The goat is survival made sacred. The ability to build, to master, to endure what others cannot. It represents the visible climb of life where effort is measured and rewarded in the world of form. But the fish half tells another story. It represents the abyss, the subconscious, the primordial waters from which life itself emerged. In Sumerian myth, this was Enki, the god of wisdom, who rose from the Abzu, the deep waters, bringing the laws of civilization. The fishtail is the hidden part of Capricorn, the emotional and spiritual undercurrent often concealed beneath its practical surface. It ties Capricorn to intuition, to memory, to the cycles of time that flow like water beneath the surface of material life. The fish is not climbing, but swimming, descending into depths that cannot be seen, carrying the soul's memory of origins. Together, goat and fish form a paradox. One moves upward, the other downward. One conquers stone, the other moves through water. The union of these opposites is the essence of Capricorn. It is not only about worldly ambition, but about spiritual depth. It teaches that the climb toward mastery is meaningless unless it is rooted in the waters of the soul. It reminds us that true discipline is not sterile, but nourished by intuition, compassion, and remembrance. The sea goat is not a contradiction, but a synthesis, the reconciliation of body and spirit within one form. Psychologically, this duality explains why Capricorn often feels divided. Outwardly, it projects control, discipline, and practicality. Inwardly, it carries sensitivity, melancholy, and hidden reservoirs of feeling. Many Capricorns hide this softer side, fearing it undermines their strength. But the fishtail cannot be denied. It is what gives depth to the climb, what ensures that ambition is not empty, but meaningful. The goat without the fish would be sterile discipline. The fish without the goat would be formless dreaming. Together, they create balance, endurance with wisdom, structure with soul. This ancient hybrid reveals Capricorn's highest teaching, that mastery comes not from rejecting one half of existence, but from uniting both. To climb the mountain while remembering the sea, to endure in the body while listening to the spirit. The goat and the fish remind us that life's purpose is not only to rise, but to remember where we came from, and to carry that memory to the summit of eternity. The sea goat may have its clearest roots in Mesopotamia, but echoes of its archetype ripple across cultures worldwide. Wherever humanity observed mountains and seas, wherever the cycles of death and rebirth were contemplated, hybrid beings arose, half of one world, half of another. Capricorn's strange symbol is therefore not an isolated invention. It is a universal language telling the story of endurance and mystery, body and spirit, earth and water. In Babylon and Sumer, as we have seen, the goatfish was linked to Enki, god of wisdom and the subterranean waters. But beyond Mesopotamia, similar figures emerged. In Greek mythology, the story of Pan leaping into the Nile during Typhon's attack explains Capricorn's form. Half submerged, he became half fish, half goat, and Zeus set him among the stars. This tale, though playful, preserves an older truth, that the goat and fish union was sacred, representing survival across two realms. In India, echoes appeared in Makara, the sea creature often depicted with the body of a crocodile and the tail of a fish, sometimes fused with goat-like features. Makara is associated with the god Varuna, lord of cosmic waters, and is considered the vehicle of the river goddess Ganga. Like Capricorn, Makara symbolizes both danger and protection, embodying the paradox of life's depths and its ascents. Indian astrology, or Jyotisha, even names Capricorn as Makara Rashi, directly linking the Western and Eastern traditions through this aquatic goat symbol. Further west, in Egypt, depictions of composite creatures blend human, animal, and aquatic forms, reflecting the same archetypal truth. The ram-headed Khnum, god of creation, was tied to the Nile source, shaping life out of clay while associated with water's generative powers. Though not explicitly a goatfish, Khnum represents the same duality: earth and water, form and flow, discipline and genesis. Even in the Celtic and Norse traditions, beings that cross boundaries of land and sea appear in myth. The Selkies, seal people who shed their skins to walk on land, mirror the paradox of two natures in one form. The Norse spoke of Jörmungandr, the Midgard serpent encircling the seas, bound to the fate of gods and men. Each of these carries the whisper of Capricorn's message. Duality is sacred, and true mastery comes from inhabiting both realms at once. What unites these myths is the idea that the hybrid is not a monstrosity, but a teacher. The goat without the fish climbs but forgets its source. The fish without the goat swims but never rises. Together, they form the complete journey of the soul, descent into depth and ascent toward eternity. That is why the symbol survived across cultures, adapted in stories yet constant in meaning. The sea goat is the eternal reminder that wisdom lies in paradox, that spirit and matter, body and soul, earth and water are never separate. They are two halves of one truth, bound together in the climb of Capricorn. The Aquarian age is rising all around us, an era of awakening rebellion against old systems and the unveiling of hidden knowledge. But the doorway into this age is not sudden liberation. It is first Capricorn's trial. For Saturn, the ruler of both Capricorn and Aquarius, insists that no one enters the new age without first being tested, refined, and prepared. The weight of Capricorn is therefore the preparation for the freedom of Aquarius. It is the discipline that makes liberation meaningful, the structure that makes innovation possible. Without Capricorn's climb, Aquarius's vision collapses into chaos. Look at the world today. Institutions are failing, structures are crumbling, governments and systems of control are showing their cracks. This is Capricorn's final work, to reveal the limits of the old, to test us through collapse, to demand that we endure while the mountain shakes beneath us. Saturn's lessons are heavy in this transition. Many feel the burden of responsibility, the weight of karma, the press of time. It is no accident. The Aquarian age demands freedom and collective awakening. But Saturn will not allow us to carry illusions into that new world. Capricorn's trials strip us of what cannot last. In astrology, the movement of Pluto into Aquarius after its long passage through Capricorn highlights this shift. Pluto in Capricorn exposed corruption in structures, tore down governments, challenged authority, and revealed what was rotten in the bones of civilization. Now, as it enters Aquarius, the focus turns to collective consciousness, technology, and liberation. But the lessons of Capricorn remain essential. Only those who have endured the trial of responsibility will be ready to hold the vision of Aquarius without falling into chaos or fragmentation. On the individual level, Capricorn's influence prepares the soul through patience, endurance, and inner mastery. The Aquarian age invites freedom, but freedom without discipline becomes destruction. Capricorn ensures that those who awaken carry wisdom, not just rebellion. Its trials, loneliness, delay, collapse are initiations. They forge character strong enough to withstand the upheaval of a world in transformation. Saturn, as the great initiator, does not release us until we are ready. And readiness means maturity. Myth also reflects this pattern. Kronos, devourer of ages, tests the soul through confinement. But from his shadow arises Zeus, bringing a new order. Osiris is torn apart, yet from his dismemberment comes renewal. Again and again, the archetype repeats. The old must be endured, faced, and transcended before the new can emerge. Capricorn is that endurance. Aquarius is that emergence. The hidden gift of Saturn in the Aquarian age is that it prepares humanity to use its new power wisely. Technology, collective vision, and spiritual awakening can liberate, but only if they are built on a foundation of discipline and integrity. Capricorn ensures that foundation. The trials we face now are not random. They are the crucible that ensures the future will not collapse under its own freedom. The goat climbs so that when the summit is reached, humanity is ready to carry the light of a new age without fear. Most horoscopes will tell you Capricorn is practical, ambitious, disciplined, or career-driven. They describe it as the worker, the builder, the authority figure. All of that is true, but it is only the surface. The secret no horoscope will ever tell you is that Capricorn is far more than a sign of worldly achievement. It is the archetype of cosmic initiation, the final gate the soul must pass before transcending into the higher realms of spirit. Its trials are not merely about success in this life. They are about readiness for eternity. Ancient astrologers knew this, though their teachings have often been lost or diluted. In the writings of Macrobius, Capricorn was described as the gate of the gods, the portal through which souls, having completed their journey in the material world, ascended back to the divine. Its opposite, Cancer, was the gate of men, the place of incarnation, where souls descended into matter. Together, these two gates map the cycle of existence itself. Descent into form, ascent into eternity. To stand in Capricorn is to stand at the threshold of completion, the point where time and karma give way to immortality. This is why Saturn, Capricorn's ruler, is both feared and revered. Saturn is the planet of time, limitation, and death. It strips away illusion, forcing the soul to confront what is real. Most fear Saturn because they see only its weight. But initiates understood that Saturn was also the final teacher. To pass Saturn's test was to be free of the cycle of rebirth. The mountain of Capricorn, steep and relentless, is the climb of initiation itself. Every setback, every delay, every burden is part of this process. And when the summit is reached, the soul no longer needs the climb. It becomes the mountain. It becomes eternal. This is the hidden truth behind Capricorn's reputation for delayed rewards. The blessings of this sign rarely come early. They arrive after endurance, after patience, after the soul has been tested and refined. To the world, it looks like slow success, but to the initiate, it is preparation for cosmic initiation. The reward is not only worldly mastery, but the authority of spirit. The goat, transformed by trial, becomes the sage. The climber becomes the guide. The one who endured Saturn's weight becomes the one who transcends it. Modern horoscopes rarely speak of this because it cannot be reduced to career advice or relationship tips. It is not about fortune. It is about destiny. Capricorn is the archetype of the soul's final test, the gate through which mortality gives way to immortality. The secret is that Capricorn is not only about achievement on Earth. It is about initiation into eternity. The initiate who passes through Capricorn's trials emerges changed forever. What was once burden becomes wisdom. What was once prison becomes liberation. What was once Saturn's chain becomes Saturn's key. And that is the secret. Capricorn is not the end of the climb. It is the moment the climber becomes eternal, passing through the gate of the gods, carrying the wisdom of time into the freedom of the infinite. Capricorn's story has always been told in fragments. Horoscopes reduce it to ambition and work. Myth remembers it as a strange sea goat, half climbing, half swimming. Astrology explains it as Saturn's sign, the ruler of time and discipline. But when these fragments are woven together, a deeper truth emerges. Capricorn is not simply a zodiac sign. It is an archetype of destiny, a living reminder of the architecture upon which all existence rests. To remember Capricorn's true story is to remember the scaffolding of the cosmos itself, the pattern of descent and ascent, of trial and renewal, of endings that lead to beginnings. The ancients never separated Capricorn from time. Saturn, its ruler, is time embodied. In Hesiod's Theogony, Kronos devours his children, symbolizing time consuming everything it creates. In Roman tradition, Saturn presides over cycles of sowing and harvest, the law that what is planted must one day be reaped. In Indian astrology, Shani marks karma's weight, ensuring that every deed finds its balance. To link Saturn with Capricorn was not arbitrary. It was recognition that Capricorn is the gate where all cycles are tested, where the weight of karma is measured, and where endurance leads to transcendence. But Capricorn is more than time's burden. It is also time's key. At the winter solstice, when darkness is longest, the sun is reborn. At the summit of the mountain, when breath is thin and the climb seems endless, a new horizon opens. Capricorn shows that the architecture of destiny is not cruel. It is purposeful. Limits exist to shape strength. Trials exist to awaken wisdom. Collapse exists to prepare renewal. Saturn does not devour to punish, but to transform. The goat climbs because through climbing, it becomes eternal. In the age we now enter, the Aquarian age, Capricorn's role becomes clearer. Aquarius offers freedom, vision, and collective awakening, but it cannot be reached without Capricorn's discipline. Before humanity can carry the power of technology, knowledge, and collective consciousness, it must first endure Capricorn's test of responsibility. Structures must be rebuilt. Integrity must be forged. The climb must be made. Remembering Capricorn's true story means seeing beyond career horoscopes and personality traits. It means recognizing that we live within a cosmic initiation. The world itself is walking the Capricorn path, heavy with trial, but preparing for liberation. Destiny is not chaos, it has architecture. And Capricorn is the architect. Bones, stone, cycles, mountains, all are its symbols, reminders that what endures must be built slowly, with patience, with discipline, with faith in the summit even when hidden by clouds. To remember Capricorn is to remember that our trials are not meaningless. They are the scaffolding upon which awakening is built. The final call of Capricorn is simple and profound. Do not curse the climb. Do not despise the wait. For in the silence of endurance, the architecture of destiny reveals itself. And when the summit is reached, what we discover is not only ourselves, but the eternal design that has been guiding us all along. And now, beloved traveler, the climb of Capricorn has reached its summit, but the journey does not end here. It never ends. The soul continues. The search continues. The remembering continues. If this story has stirred something within you, do not keep it to yourself. Let it ripple outward. Watch our other voyages. Share them with those who are climbing their own mountains. Subscribe so that you never miss the next path of hidden wisdom. Comment so that your voice becomes part of this great remembering. And let your presence here, your likes, your shares, become a light that guides others to this summit. Because what we are building here is not entertainment. It is initiation. It is memory. It is destiny. Welcome to the hidden voyage. Welcome home, soul whisper and soul creator. The hidden voyage.